People who set up living trusts think that it eliminates the taxes. Right? I mean, 90% of the people that set up living trusts think it saved them money on taxes. Right? It doesn't.
Just avoids probate.
Right. It avoids probate, makes it private, right? And there's some benefits to that. It makes it simple, private, avoids probate, but it doesn't save you a dime on taxes. Right? So you go, great. What you've done with your trust does not conflict with any of this. It doesn't create any conflicts or confusion with your trust. So you won't have to change anything there. I would not get into the discussion about their misunderstanding about trust at that point. I'd make a note and say, after we get this done, I'm going to circle back around and re-educate on how they understand the trust. Because then you're rabbit trail, right?
Well, they couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that their trust paid the taxes. They were totally blown away that they're not going to have to pay any taxes.
Yeah, they got to have a discussion about that. That's why they were surprised.
Okay, and I know that not every single meeting is going to flow like this. But one of the things that I had an issue with, I kept going back to, well, there's two types of funding. Let me back up a couple of that. So I get where you throw in there's two types of peoples after the hierarchy discussion.
Yeah.
The next thing is there's basically two types of money that transfers at your death.
Right.
The ones that are taxed and the ones that are not taxed. At what point would you slide that in?
Here's where I talk about the two types of people. Legacy money. Remember?
Can you go through that section again right there? Do you mind rolling
this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So let's talk about the hierarchy of money. Hierarchy of money is very similar in concept to the hierarchy of needs developed by Maslow, which basically says as individuals we have some basic needs that go all, food, shelter, clothing, go all the way up to self-actualization. It's really no different when you start talking about retirement planning. There are expenses that you want to have met, food, shelter, clothing, down the base level. And then above that, you have discretionary expenses, entertainment, dining, recreation, travel, hobbies, those types of things. Those two areas make up what most people think of as their retirement experience. And we want to make sure that those are adequately funded, that when you've chosen work to be optional, that you have enough assets and income to live out that kind of lifestyle that you've chosen for as long as you may need it without the fear of running out of money, and that you're absolutely certain of that. Okay? Above that line, the discussion will get a little bit more interesting. And that is, once we're comfortable with that, let's look at these additional things that you've always wanted to do and you haven't yet done. Or to put it a different way, the things that you would regret not having done. And see if they can be funded and that if it still works. Because my guess is that you might not take money and pay for a grandkid's college if you were concerned that you might not have money. And a lot of times I'll ask them the question, what would keep you from buying one of your grandkids a brand new car? What would keep you from, other than whether you agree or disagree, what financially would keep you from doing it?
Whether I'm going to need the money.
I might need the money, right? So if we knew that you weren't going to, that might free you up to do some of those things that you might want to do. At the top level, we look at the legacy dollars. These are the dollars that go through your estate that you're not going to end up spending. And if you think about it, there are two types of people financially. There are those that are going to outlive their money, and nobody wants to be in that camp. And there are those that their money is going to outlive them. And just by the nature of work that I do, that's who I end up talking with. And I think it's one of my obligations that if we know that you're going to have money that passes through your estate, it's going to outlive you, that we need to transfer your values and principles to the organization and people that you care about in the most tax-efficient way. Does that make sense? Okay. So I've talked about legacy dollars, and I've ended it with a kind of a closing question. I've just explained the concept, right? This is the whole confident retirement tool concept, just right there what I just did. Okay, so then I get to move us into the discussion. I can say, are you doing any sort of charitable contributions on a regular basis right now? Stanley, are you doing any?
Yes.
What type? Tell me about that.
I'm giving to my church around $100 a year.
What church is that?
United
Methodist.
Methodist.
Okay. What amounts are you doing normally?
Typically, between 8 to 10,000.
8 to 10,000. Okay. Have you made any provisions to continue that beyond your life expectancy?
No.
Okay. Can I show you a way that you might be able to do that if you're interested? All right, are you interested in looking at that?
Sure.
Okay. Most people are. Most people would be polite enough to say sure. If they say no, fine. You say, fair enough. Have you heard about the concept of social capital? Right? You're rolling in here either way. Right? They say yes or no, but it's their discussion. And the discussion is going to be, it's going to be a little different, but it's the same point. Okay? So are you doing any charitable contributions on a regular basis? Oh, tell me about that. United Methodist, how much? Have you made any provisions to continue that beyond your life expectancy? There's two answers. Yes, I have. Tell me about that. And we've got answers wrong. Yes, they've done it at their will. Great, because then you can show them a better way. If they've done it through some sort of other means, interesting. Let's talk about that. That means they've got a commitment to legacy plan. Okay, it's a great discussion either way. If they say no, which is what most people say, you say, can I show you a way that we might be able to do that if you're interested? Again, most people would be polite enough to say, sure. You don't have them yet, but sure. Let's talk about the concept of social capital. Okay. Concept of social capital basically says each of us that have been blessed financially have an obligation to help the rest of society with some of those dollars. Pause. Whether or not you believe that's to be the case or not, doesn't matter. That's how the tax code's written. It basically says when you pass away, the IRS comes in, pulls off about a third of your assets, sends that up to Washington, D.C. It's doled out for social programs based on what they think is worthy. Pause. Or you can do it. You can direct your social capital to the charities or organizations that are meaningful to you and your family. So you can be a good taxpayer, or you can be a philanthropist, one or the other. But you can't direct that social capital to your kids. So if you've got $1 million in an IRA, the kids don't get $1 million. They get about $650,000. The missing part is your social capital. But there's a better way. Okay? And that's the legacy plan. So if we were to redirect your IRAs over to the Ted Cheney Foundation, or the Brantley Giving Fund, or whatever, I'm going to use your name specifically, and it will catch their attention. So if I direct those IRA dollars over to the Ted Cheney Fund, Ted Cheney Foundation, there's no taxes on that. Your foundation gets 100% of that IRA. So if there's $1 million in the IRA, it gets $1 million. We put it over there. The rest of the money goes to the heirs. Okay? Now, the concept here is, which I skipped after social capital, but remember there are two types of people financially. Those are going to outlive their money, and those their money is going to outlive them. There's also two types of money. Taxable money and non-taxable money. Taxable money is your IRAs, 401ks, and everything above the unified credit amount. Tax-free money is everything else. And there are two recipients to that. There are those that pay taxes, like your natural heirs, and non-taxpayers, like a charity. And what we see a lot of times is, you haven't done it. Some people will mention it in their will. And I'll leave $10,000 to the First Methodist Church. Fine. Your taxable dollars have a beneficiary designation on them, okay, going to the taxpayers. Everything else is governed by the will. If the will says I want $10,000 to go to this charity, which doesn't pay taxes, basically what we've done is we've given taxable money to people that have to pay taxes, and we've given tax-free money to people that don't. We've done it exactly backwards. And there's a better way. Okay, so that would fit right. In fact, I'm just going to put a cross right there, or an X. That would be your, because the point of two types of people, two types of money, two types of recipients, is so you can go like that. Right? There you go.
Crisscross your arm.
Yeah. That's how that discussion is. Right? Is either you've got it set up completely backwards, or most people do it completely backwards. I'm going to show you a better way to reverse that. Okay? You're just doing this. That's how it is. Here's the better way. It's the legacy giving strategy. All right? So IRA goes over to the Ted Cheney Foundation. They get 100% of it. No taxes. The rest of the money goes to the heirs. You stop. Everybody loves this idea, right? You feel good about what you've done. You've done something great for a charity and created an endowment program for First Methodist Church or whatever charity he just talked about. I say you've done something good for that charity. So the Ted Cheney Foundation has done something good for First Methodist Church, whatever. The foundation or the charity feels good about it as well. So you feel good about it, the charity feels good about it, the IRS even says they're okay with it because you've directed your social capital to worthy causes. Who doesn't feel great about it?
The kids.
Kids, because they go, hey, wait, what about me? We're not trying to, screw over the kids. You wouldn't say that, but we're not trying to, take from the kids. Some of those legacy dollars, and remember they've heard legacy dollars about 3 times so far. Some of those legacy dollars down at the bottom of the pile. Remember, you have a retirement plan. You pull in income and distributions off the top. You never get down to the bottom. Those are the dollars that pass through your estate. You never pick the last dollar up off the floor and spend it. Some of those dollars we want to rearrange, push into an insurance policy that pays at the second death, so that the kids essentially we've replaced that wealth that went over to your foundation. So now the kids get everything they would have gotten. The charity gets something it would not have gotten, and the IRS paid for it all. Does that make sense?
That line right there, to me, kind of is a great line. The IRS paid for it all.
Yeah, it'll catch their attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what if they challenge you? Now, what do you mean the IRS pays for it?
They will.
Okay? What do you mean the IRS pays for it? Let me show you why the math is always going to work out to be about that. Okay? If you have $1 million that goes to the heirs, what's the IRS's take? All right, so let's say $300,000. That $300,000, if you push it into a second to die policy, buys about how much? Most of the time. A lot. $1 million to $650,000, right? How much are we needing to replace? $1 million to $650,000. Depending on how you want to look at it. You could say, I just want to buy $650 because that's all the kids were going to get. Right? So I'm going to replace the net after-tax amount to the kids, $650. $300,000 in a second to die policy is going to get you a death benefit of $1 million to $650. 9 times out of 10. Right? When you're talking to people in this age group. So you say, well, so that's what I'm talking about. Is that the social capital, the money the IRS was going to take, if we direct that, we replace the money. The IRS pays for it. Does that make sense? It can go to social capital, or it can go to taxes. It can't go to the kids. So if you get that concept across, they'll go, oh, well then I don't care. Put it in the insurance policy. Because I don't want to go, if it's the difference between the insurance policy in Washington, D.C., insurance policy wins. Especially when you own the insurance policy. And your kids are the beneficiaries of that insurance policy. That seems a lot more appealing. Right? So if they ask, sometimes they will. Don't try and get in the weeds on it, though. Right? It should take about that long. Right? Don't get in the weeds. Don't try and do a tax calculation. Don't look at the net lump sum to fund the policy. You're not trying to do that right now. You're just saying, you get the concept. This will work. All right. They'll go with you. Right? Is this strategy worth exploring a little bit more? Would it be worthwhile to look at the details on this? Would it make sense for us to see if this works for you? Right? You ask it any version of different ways. Basically what you're saying is, look at the details. And I'm going to show you either 9 circles, boom, boom, boom. I'm going to show you a confident retirement tool. I'm going to show you an NAVA plan. Or we're just going to, legal pad it. Right? So there's different ways you can say, see those bottom 2 levels, you're fine.
Do you really need to do the details?
What if it's a planning client, you've gone through that 5 different times? You go, remember when we looked at your analysis last time you were in and it looked like you were okay? Remember that? You're okay. All right, so you're in the camp that's going to have money that outlives you. You remember that, looking at that back in May? They go, yeah, sure. We've looked at it every year for the past 5. Okay, then you skip it. Right? You just say, remember that? Remember that calculation that we always do?